Great. Let's get started. Good morning, Vasu.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Vasu, for joining this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Tableau to Power BI migration. My name is Noor Basha, Senior Director of Marketing at WinWire, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. As you'll know, today's topic is on Tableau to Power BI migration. Basically, in the next 30 to 45 minutes, we will discuss and show how WinWire's solution accelerators, which is Win with Fabric Power BI, makes your entire transition from Tableau to Power BI smooth and efficient. And also, with this approach, you would be able to cut down model rebuild time by 50% and also reduce the licensing cost by close to 50 to 60%. Before we get started, let me highlight few housekeeping items. So we are recording this session and we'll make this session available to you in the next 24 to 48 hours. We also have like some time allocated for the Q&A, which we will address at the end of this session. So please go ahead and type in your questions in the chat window, and I'll uh, have them ready and discuss with Vasu as and when we get to the tail end of this session. So with this, let me also introduce you to today's speaker, my colleague Srinivasulu, and we call him Vasu, who is a principal architect in data and AI practice team at WinWire, and he brings close to 2 decades of experience working with some of the large enterprise clients. With that, let me hand it over to Vasu to take it from here. Vasu, over to you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Noor. I hope I'm loud and clear. Noor, can you just confirm?
Yep, yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot for the introduction. So let me just give a quick brief about myself. And as Noor mentioned, I have close to 2 decades of experience in IT, predominantly focusing on Microsoft Azure. Over a decade now, worked and helped with many customers. In implementing the modern data platform architectures, and especially building the business driven solutions for the customers. And over this period, I've seen many customers come up with a lot of questions in terms of the migration activities, especially we are talking about the analytics platform. So I take care of the DE and DA platform, or the practice in WinWire. So and that's pretty much about me. As part of today's discussion, so we would be focusing on Tableau to Power
Well,
BI. Sorry,
yeah, no, I think right now you're on the housekeeping. Yeah, so
yeah.
we can see your speaker slide and getting
Oh yeah,
good. Yeah,
sorry.
thank you, Vasu.
Yeah,
No
this is
problem.
me. I'm the speaker. This is the just a photo of mine. Thank you. Okay. As part of agenda, we're going to cover this Tableau to Power BI migration, what exactly the challenges, and why people are migrating to Power BI from Tableau, and what exactly the automated solutions that are currently available with WinWire. That we have built it over a period of time, and we will also go to a demo and look at how exactly that particular solution is, and on a high level, and we will be looking at the customer stories as well, right? So, without wasting the time, so let's look at why we are, or the customers are migrating from Tableau to Power BI, right? So, over the past few years, there was an increasing demand from the customers to migrate from Tableau to Power BI due to various reasons, and these are the reasons which we have collated, by looking at, the customers' problem statements, and by understanding their environments, right? So let's talk about the first one, so which is the higher cost and complex license models, right? So as Tableau licensing is not pretty straightforward, just like the way we have in Power BI, right? In Power BI, pretty much for creators we have a simple license model and capacity for the the server based model. But whereas in Tableau, it is not very straightforward, and there is a lot of challenges also to arrive at what exactly the actual cost of the Tableau, right? So when you are implementing it, so that's where the license models and the cost I mean is pretty I would say the hidden I mean I can say, and every time you actually go to the sales team to come up with a proper estimation for your implementation, right? Now, the next one is about limited, customization options. I mean, indeed, I mean, when we saw the Tableau implementations, the customizations are, pretty limited, whether it comes to the service or whether it comes to the visualizations. I mean, when I say it is service, what exactly that means is about the Tableau cloud or the, Tableau servers, right? And the third one is about the performance issues. So most of the customers, I mean, have been complaining about this performance issues. There are two types of performance issues which we have seen it earlier, and I know even now also when we are seeing it as part of the migration. One is, I mean, yeah, the refresh of, the Tableau report, while the data set refresh itself is taking longer time. And there are a lot of challenges, I mean, over there because, I mean, it's not too intuitive and, we really don't know, if the data volume is too big, I mean, right? So then, indeed the refresh itself, going to take time. And there are a lot of, limited options over there in terms of implementing the same. And the other performance issue, what we have seen it is, I mean, the initial view when you are loading the, report itself will take a lot of time, I mean, for the, and, many users also complained that, when we are doing the interactions of the report also, that actually takes time and it's all depends on, the data, what exactly we have on the report, right? So that those are the performance issues which we have seen. And there is a the next one is about the the unified semantic layer, resulting in technical debt and increasing maintenance cost. So in a simple terms, I call this as a kind of a data silos, which means different departments I mean interpret the data differently, and it is really making hard I mean to analyze across the organization about the same data, right? There is nothing called a common data model which is can be available I mean as part of the Tableau. Now the next challenge what we have seen is about the integration challenges, right? So the moment integration comes into the picture, how fast we can integrate, and what are the tools and technologies, and I mean that is also been limited as part of Tableau. Now higher development efforts, so this is one of the major, I would say, the complaint, I mean, which we have seen it, I mean, with the customers, when we are working with them, that, okay, hey, I mean, my unless, I mean, building a report in Tableau is very, very, I mean, tough, right? It is not a user friendly at all. And it takes a lot of time, I mean, to even understand it. And eventually what exactly they, I mean, what exactly happens is, I mean, they are, I mean, they are dependent on, the development team, and that actually brings us the go to business or the go to market itself will take time, right? So these are the the challenges which we have seen. There are many challenges, but we have just listed down here only as six, I mean that this is the one which is causing the entire wave I mean of moving from Tableau to Power BI, right? Now, so how exactly, I mean, this Power BI is addressing, I mean, these are these challenges, right? So that is what exactly, which we would be, focusing on with the solution, what we have built it, I mean, over a period of time, correct? So in this particular, I mean, solution or the, migration approach, I mean, as we, the discussion, which we had it on, the challenges approach, right? So we are, leveraging, the automation tool sets and the best practices, within the Power BI to make sure that, I mean, all these challenges are overcome. And we have seen that, the licensing cost has been, reduced drastically when compared to the, Tableau to Power BI implementations. And that's what, I mean, we will eventually discuss on that, in the next, coming slides, right? Now, as part of the solution approach, I mean, so as you see, there are, I mean, 7-step process, I mean, which you are seeing it, right? So for Tableau to Power BI migration, I mean, indeed, you have to understand what is your landscape, within the Tableau. Let's say if I have around 200 plus reports in my, Tableau, then, what exactly the metadata of that, I mean, reports is what exactly which we should be focusing on. And we would be, once we have that particular metadata, and you start analyzing your complete the complexity of each and every report. Now, most of the times earlier, or most of the people, what we have seen it when we're working with the customers, that let's say if we have 200 reports, based on the user views, or user usage of the reports, they call that as a complex, but nobody has ever seen that, okay, how complex is your, report when Tableau developer built it, right? So that is the place where, the key, structure of, or the key base, for us to move from, which is needed for us to move to Tableau, to Power BI, right? Now, in terms of that level of details, that's where the metadata extraction comes into the picture, and we are also defining what exactly, by understanding the metadata itself, we are looking at how exactly the complexity of that particular Tableau report, and what is the best way to migrate those metadata extraction into the Power BI environment. And is there any automation that can be built as part of the model validation? That is what exactly the another step. And the next step is about, understanding or mirroring whatever has been implemented in Tableau. The same thing, how do we actually implement it in Power BI? These are the basic steps. And finally, once the Tableau report is being migrated to Power BI and the visualizations are created, then we are going to compare the report, side by side, to make sure that everything is proper as part of the data model, as part of the joins, as part of the the granularity of it, and as part of the visualization and the the tool tips, and everything as part of the format of the Power BI report, right? So that is what we will be doing, the validation and the optimization and the governance of it. So at any given point of time, the first step in as part of Tableau to Power BI migration, we always look at, the as is migration. And once the as is migration is done, now we always look at it, okay, what exactly the steps that can be implemented as part of, the best practices, where we can, leverage the, the best practices of the Power BI and start, optimizing that particular, report, right? So, that is where, the ongoing optimization, and then, the governing that particular, reports that is already been migrated to Power BI within the Power BI workspace is what exactly the environment, which will be the final one that is getting delivered, right? Now, in these 7 steps, what has been automated from our side, right? As part of the solution is the first, 4 steps is what exactly has been automated. And regarding this, Tableau functionalities, reconciliation and validation, and the ongoing optimization, these 3 eventually we will start discussing in detail when we go through the next slides of it, right? So now, as part of the migration flow, right? So it's a kind of a 2-step process. As you saw earlier in earlier slide, when there is a 2-step process is what we built it. One is the metadata extraction here, which means, through an API, we are, connecting to, the Tableau servers, and we are making sure that we're getting the entire metadata of the Tableau workbooks. When I say the metadata, of the Tableau workbooks, what exactly is getting fetched out of that particular metadata extraction, we will eventually see it in the next slides. But this particular metadata extraction will be loaded into I would say JSON, and eventually it will go into the Power BI report which we have built it, and it will give some kind of a complexity score, right? This is what exactly we are trying, we have automated it to understand that if anyone is getting from yeah, if anyone is, getting, into, Tableau to Power BI, just to understand the Tableau reports, how many, Tableau reports are the complex reports I have, how many medium complex reports I have, and how many small, complexity, right? So these are all the level of, details which we typically needed when we understand the Tableau landscape. And that is what exactly this particular, piece of it will be, taken, into consideration, to understand the landscape of the Tableau report. Now, the next step in terms of this particular solution is about automation of, the migration of model, right? Now, you might be thinking, okay, what exactly is this model, migration? So for any kind of a Power BI report, you do have, some sequence of steps. Now, what exactly those sequence of steps? You open the Power BI report, you connect to a source of, you connect to the source of the Power BI report, and get the necessary tables, and go to your Power M query, apply, all the level of navigation and the applied steps, whatever has been built, and then you close and apply of it, then you get your data model, ready, right? And then you start building your data model by connecting the dots, and then you start visualize and start building the measures and then the visualizations, right? These are the sequence of steps, for any Power BI development life cycle, right? Now in this particular sequence of steps, what exactly we have done it is, we have automated the model creation. When I say automated, the model creation means connecting to the source, getting the data, and making sure that the Power M query is being taken care. And then it just that the moment you run the solution, you get your data, and you get your PBIX file, or the PBIT file ready in your local and as well as in your service. That is what we will be showing as part of the demo as well. The moment we have these, that means the developer can actually start working directly as part of your calculations. So now let me go back to the previous slide. So if you look at it, out of all the 7 steps, until here is what exactly is being automated. Now once you have the PBIT file, so it is as good as just going understanding the the Tableau LOD expressions, and then building the same as part of the DAX measures, right? Or the calculated columns. That is what exactly which we would be building it. And then you would be looking at the visualizations part, how exactly we can build the visualizations, what is the equivalent visualization in Power BI. These are all the manual things every migration of a to Power BI, should have it. And then finally, the fine tuning, right? So that is what exactly we are going to get the PBIT files. And once we have the model file that is available, then the report developers can actually go and start developing by creating the measures, by creating the calculated columns, and then, building the visualizations and doing the reconciliation of it, right? So that is how the life cycle of, the migration flow, typically goes. And finally, the user validation support, correct? Now, this is the usual migration and the automation, what we have done it as part of this particular migration. Now, in earlier slide, so I was looking at, or explaining about the metadata repository, what exactly the API, is actually fetching, right? As part of, to understand the Tableau landscape. This is what exactly we are, extracting, from the, Tableau, metadata, to understand how complex is your report, in your, current Tableau environment. That is where, this particular data from the APIs, will be really helpful for us, and which will be useful for us to understand your Tableau landscape, right? Now, as part of this particular solution, what exactly we are getting out of it, right? So we have seen that there is a 50% reduction of time in terms of building your models. You don't need to worry about your Power M queries. You don't need to worry about connecting to the sources, and everything is completely automated here. And we have seen the 25 to 30% of reduction in dashboard building or conversion efforts. How exactly we are saying this is because we do have a repository of the LOD expressions, and what is the equivalent of it, as part of the Power BI solutions. And we have built that particular repository over a period of time by working along with the multiple customers and understanding their landscape, understanding the different problematic LOD expressions, and what is the best way to or best or equivalent of it in Power BI. And that's where the reduction of time in dashboard building is is much reduced. And we do have an accelerator, the metadata driven approach, to make sure that your understanding of Tableau landscape has been taken care. And we know with this particular thing, we are also say looking at the migration cost savings eventually as part of our plan. And we have also seen that the business adoption within the Power BI is pretty faster. and we do run the DIAD programs, just like the Microsoft DIAD programs. I mean, we do run that as part of the business adoption to make sure that once the reports are migrated, we want our the business users to should understand the landscape of Power BI and come out of the Tableau and understand the landscape of Power BI and start utilizing the Power BI functionalities, right? And whatever the Power BI reports which has been built in Power BI or migrated in Power BI, by default that comes with the embed I would say application insights, and that will give you enough information about your capacities, and also there will be a proper embedding that can be done into any of the applications, right? And when we are migrating it, we make sure that everything is highly secured, and also the row level securities are automatically taken care as part of the implementation, right? So these are all the values that will be getting as part of the solution and the implementation as part of our Tableau to Power BI migration with the WinWire solutions. Now, so this is on the, I would say on the Tableau to Power BI, side. Now, as part of the second topic within our, today's, webinar, so we do have the, Power BI Copilot and, Fabric integration, right? So now, as part of the, Tableau to Power BI migration, earlier that, it is all about the, you need some kind of capacities to be available to make sure you have an enterprise landscape that is either the the ASQs or the PSQs is what exactly which you would be using it. But given the fact the fabric came into the picture, now the things will be very different, as part of our implementation, right? Now, before going into the fabric and the landscape of it, let's understand what is this particular Power BI Copilot, and this is one of the buzzword, which came recently, within the Microsoft market, and there is a lot of I would say videos, and even the Adam Saxton, have been creating a lot of videos on this particular Copilot, right? Now, in a simplistic, or approach, the Power BI Copilot is an AI-powered extension that seamlessly integrates with the Microsoft Power BI, right? So everyone calls this as an extension, but but I love to call this as basically a Power BI, got an AI engine, right? Why I'm actually calling that as an AI engine, because this particular AI engine is so powerful, it actually understands your data model and then the data, just like any other search engine, just like the way you have, the Microsoft Bing or the, Google search, you just type, any of the meaningful sentence and you actually get your results, just like the way, we have in the search engines, even here as well. You basically type, the just a normal plain English sentence, and and it actually gives you your DAX. It actually gives you your visualizations also as part of the report. Now, in a simplistic approach, or a sentence can be let's call it as maybe, okay, show total sales amount for last year, where sales country is or sales country in USA and India, in a card visual, right? The moment you actually type this, then you get your card visual, and it actually goes through a total sales amount to measure in your data model, and it actually goes and identifies that there is a sales country, which is the USA and India, right? So like this, it actually understands what exactly the measures it has been used, and what exactly the dimensions that has already been used, and what exactly the visual. These are all the contents, that will be grabbed as part of your, the Copilot, and it actually gives you the DAX, and also it actually builds you the visualization of it. So this is where, the Copilot became way too powerful. And why exactly we are talking about this as part of Tableau to Power BI migration is because, as I mentioned earlier, so when we are looking at this particular migration, it's always a Tableau to Power BI is an as-is migration, right? Because because it's a business is adopting it. And indeed, you have to look at the adoption of the business as the highest priority, which means their screens will be different when compared to Tableau and Power BI. They have to understand the navigation, they have to understand the interactions, etc. Right? Once the business user adoption is done, how fast an analyst can build your Power BI report, by understanding your, or, by having the data set that is already available in your Power BI, right? And that is where the Copilot, comes into picture, that, hey, yeah, I do have a Power BI data set. Now let's actually, okay, the visualizations, what has been migrated, from Tableau to Power BI is okay. Now let's look at, anything more that can be, get an insights out of this particular Copilot, right? And that is the reason why the Copilot becomes way too powerful in terms of the Power BI side. And indeed, there are some prerequisites which we certainly have to have it as part of your Copilot, but that's that can be easily available in terms of setting up the prerequisites, right? Now, this particular Copilot, in a simplistic terms, as part of my explanation, which I've already done it. So it's a simplified report creation and intelligent, data model. All you have to do is, just follow the Ralph Kimball rules or the data modeling of the simple star schema. Power BI doesn't like the snowflake, based on our experience, with the customers, and it's a simple plain star schema is what exactly which we have seen it very powerful. And make sure that the Ralph Kimball dimensional modeling has been followed, which means the date dimension should be there, and a proper dimension key like one-to-many relationship should be available. Avoid the many-to-many, all those data modeling. If we follow it, then automatically that particular data model can be read by the Copilot, and it actually gives you the meaningful insights out of it, right? And by default, as soon as you type the sentence, okay, like the way I mentioned, total sales amount for last year, the moment I type this, I get the DAX formulas also by using the Copilot. Now, this can be achieved as part of two approaches. One is either you can do it in Power BI desktop, or you can also do it in the Power BI service. In the Power BI desktop, you get this as part of your, the Q&A or the quick measures itself, and that is how you will be able to achieve the intelligent DAX formulas. Now, collaborative development, indeed, because the data set is, shareable across the workspace and, across the apps as well. So that way, you will be able to have a proper development environment and enhanced data exploration. As soon as you have a proper data model set up, and by default AI engine of Power BI will look at your data, and it actually gives you the meaningful exploration activities on top of your data, right? Now, as part of the landscape, what we have on Power BI, when I say Power BI means now it is called as a fabric, completely. As you already, seeing in the screen, so you do have a one lake architecture here, uh, and then, we do have bunch of, intelligent data foundations, right? So let me explain this, particular slide in a simplistic, approach. So for any sorry, yeah. So for any kind of, I would say the implementation of the more, the enterprise implementations, what we need is, three factors, or, three things as part of the architecture. One is you need a storage, storage side of it. And, you need an, couple of engines, what exactly those engines. You have the ETL or the ELT engines. You have the data warehouse and the Spark engines, and there is also an AI engines that are available, and there is also a visualization engine that is available here as part of the fabric, right? So this is the complete landscape. So in a simplistic approach, you can actually try to build, the entire, not exactly try, you can literally build the enterprise level solutions within the fabric by, going through this particular one lake architecture and the engines that are available. Earlier, we used to have the modern data platforms like implemented in, the ADF and a dedicated SQL pools, and then, the visualization of Power BI. Eventually that got migrated to Synapse workspaces or Synapse Analytics, and eventually now it can be same replicated in the Fabric. Now, in terms of the costing, there is properly, savings, and that is part of the Fabric. And thanks to Microsoft for getting the wonderful Fabric costing structures to make it the more simplistic. Power BI, the Synapse implementation itself, when we're looking at the landscape of it and the costing model, it's way too simple. Now Microsoft even made this Fabric implementation way too simple, even more simple on it, right? Now, that's on the Power BI landscape. Now let's actually jump on to the demo, where we are talking about the Power BI Tableau to Power BI solution, and in terms of what exactly we have as part of the I would say implementation. So I do have a simple, Power BI, workspace here, which is attached to a Fabric capacity. As you can see here, there is a diamond symbol, and I do have a Tableau environment, so where in a simplistic approach, I just have like only one. In the interest of time, I have only one workbook, and in that particular one workbook, I have close to bunch of worksheets which are available, right? Now I want to understand how complex is this particular workbook is, and what exactly the metadata of that particular workbook, right? And then how we can actually migrate it through our solution what has been built. So let me just start the solution, and then I will just wait for it. So what exactly is happening here? So it actually connects to the Tableau servers through an API calls, and with the public tokens, it actually fires these type of GraphQL queries. These are all the graph QL or the graph IQL queries, which are readily which we have to build it on our own, based on our needs, right? And then it fetches the data from Tableau server, and then it will be converting that into our simplistic approach of JSON or the CSV through that particular solution itself. And finally, the Power BI file will be available. So earlier, if you would have noticed, in this Power BI workspace, there were no file at all, and this has just arrived. This is the IST time, so this particular file has just arrived. And what exactly the solution? Yeah, I think it's already been done. The solution, because we already got the file. So the file is already arrived, and what is the level of I would say sorry. Yeah. What is the level of metrics which we are trying to capture it? As part of the solution or the demo, or maybe as part of the workbooks, right, from the Tableau. In the interest of time, I've already executed these close to 7 reports, which was part of my Tableau site, right? And let's look at these, right, couple of stuff. So take an example. I have let's say HR dashboard, and this is only one data source. There are 24 calculated fields, and bins are 2, worksheets are 17, and parameter is close to 5, right? The moment I look at this itself, okay, parameter building is complex, and calculated fields means, yes, you have to implement it manually, and there are multiple 17 worksheets, so obviously you will have to build it proper, in Power BI, right? So over a period of time, we came up with a kind of a complexity scores or the complexity calculations, that if you have this type of a landscape within the Tableau, or for each and every report, how much of time it actually going to take in Power BI is what exactly has been is part of the right side of the pane. And here, as you can see, the note, right, in a simplistic approach, the medium notebooks where the score is in between 10 to 25 of of it, then the Power BI developer can take can take develop like 2 to 3 days, where yes, the automation of data model is done, and then the remaining work is what exactly will be taken care as part of the development, right? So this is the I mean, I would say the score, I mean, which we have arrived at by looking at the previous engagements, and that is how the approach of converting from Tableau to Power BI can be automated, and we can see here this particular report also being pushed into the Power BI service, and this can be downloaded, few of the PowerShell scripts that we already have it as part of the solution, and then the developers can actually start working on top of it, right? Now let's go back. Finally, we do have the customer stories, as we are almost coming to the end of the call. So we do have the customer stories. Over a period of time, I've I mean, worked on these customer stories, and with the customer implementations as well. So there are close to 270, Tableau reports available, and that has been migrated to Power BI over a period of 12 months. And the approach, whatever we have discussed till now, that's exactly the same approach. We have followed it, and customer has seen that the reports are generated 50% faster, and the engagement of the users are really loving it. The reason behind it is Power BI is so intuitive, and thanks to Microsoft and the Power BI for that, right? And indeed, the cost, efficiency. It's a simplistic cost, costing licenses, and it just only the fabric for 270 Tableau reports that are already been migrated to Power BI. We are just using only the P1 capacity, which is just only the F64 as part of the fabric, right? So we have seen that the cost of the licenses also been reduced, drastically. And the another customer story, what we have seen it, and this is like a kind of the complex workbooks that is being migrated, where 80, Tableau workbooks with 300 different worksheets with a different, level of calculations in terms of parameters, in terms of, the LOD functions, etc. Where I was talking about some repository. So that's exactly the one, which we have built it, over a period of time. These are the two customer stories we have for that. And again, the faster report generation. And in this, the customer really loved the way the initial view of the loading of the initial view when user clicks on the report, right? So it is less than 5 seconds when compared to Tableau. It is way faster in Power BI, and they we have implemented the Copilot also in this particular project, and indeed everybody started leveraging the Copilot, and we have given enough trainings, and then the approaches in terms of building how we should be building the data models after doing the Agis migration, right? So this is the these are the customer stories which we have achieved it over a period of time. And in terms of the Tableau to Power BI migration with this particular solution, what we have built it, that will actually eventually bring in a way to faster of implementation. And we're also working on building an application pages also for it, which means a front-ending part that will be taken care as part of the beta releases in the next year, maybe in the first quarter or the second quarter, where the user or the business user just select the Tableau reports through the UI of the application, and instead of seeing the application what I have shown Visual Studio, instead of that everything will be built as part of the UI. And we're also having an upcoming webinar next year just to talk about the Fabric experience. Please do register and follow our WinWire LinkedIn and pages to get the latest news of it. Thanks a lot, for your time. And Noor, I guess we are bang on time. We can actually take some Q&A on it now.
Great. Thanks, Vasu, for really taking this insightful session, and also quickly jumping into the demo, and most importantly, giving a quick flavor about Power BI Copilot as well. Yeah, I do have a few questions, so let me jump into that right away. I think the first thing is certainly, I think, most uh, like popular question I can say: how easy it is to set up this solution that you're talking about, Win with Power BI?
Yeah, so this particular solution setup is pretty easy. It's just only few configurations and fabric capacity. Even the lowest fabric capacity license is more than sufficient. And authentication and tokens, it's pretty fast in terms of setting up this particular solution.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the next question is like, do we have the repository of these Tableau calculations that are converted to Power BI?
Oh yeah, right. So over a period of time, as you see that, we worked on 270, workbooks and 80 complex, workbooks as well from the two different customers and many other customers as well. So we built and we understood these, Tableau calculations and what exactly the equivalent of, that in Power BI. So we do have a repository that is already been built with, within the WinWire now, and which can be, leveraged as part of the project implementation.
Okay, great. Now, on the licensing, since it's moving to Fabric, what are the Power BI licenses that is required in case if we have to run this particular solution?
Yeah, so for setting up this particular solution, we need a fabric capacity. So that is what the basic thing which we needed. And anyway, when you're migrating from Tableau to Power BI, because it's an enterprise implementations, we eventually need the P SKUs or the F SKUs. Eventually, I think next year, Microsoft is going to retire the P SKUs, and we would be calling everything as an F SKUs. So we just need only the Fabric SKUs as part of the licenses. And the cost of it, is a very, very straightforward, which is readily available based on the regions.
Okay, okay. So the other question is, what are the thresholds to determine if a direct conversion versus a complete rebuild is necessary?
Right. So when it comes to the complete rebuild, okay. So for that, right, we have to understand different aspects of it. One is either you understand the first Tableau, data landscape, and you try to rebuild the same thing, within the Power BI, by following the Power BI standards. That is the recommended rebuilding approach of it. And this is one of the approach which we always recommended. But there is a two-step process. One is, okay, let's build as is migration from the Tableau to Power BI, and then you go for the rebuild, right? So this is the two-step process which we recommend as part of this rebuilding it.
2 more minutes. I'll take these two last questions. So the next is, how does the conversion handles data blending from Tableau to Power BI?
So the data blending in a I would say in a simplistic manner, or simplistic approach, right? So we are utilizing or we are automating the Power M, queries, right? As part of this particular migration. So which means everything, the conversions by default, it will be handled, but any kind of calculated columns, we will certainly have to look at it, and the LOD functions, according to the data that needs to be verified.
Okay, okay. Hope this answers the question. So one last question. This is a little lengthy, so let me read it out. Okay. Uh, uh, Power BI proof of concept, we have experienced that Tableau supports multiple joint types, okay, like inner, outer, full conditional joins directly within the workbook. They also understand that Power BI has some limitations, such as supporting inner joins and requiring one column relationships. Now, the question is, how does our solution basically handles this conversion challenge?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So as part of the conversion, currently we are in a state of, okay, creating the exact, same, sources. When I say sources means, let's say if my Tableau workbook contains around, 10 different tables, and, which contains either a many-to-many relation or one-to-many relation within the, Tableau workbooks. And Tableau is bit intelligent in terms of suppressing these duplicates and all. So that can be taken care within the Tableau. But whereas in Power BI implementation, our solution automates all by creating the 10 different tables within the Power BI or PBIT file. And the reason why we have not automated the one-to-many relation or many-to-many relation setup currently, because we don't recommend the many-to-many relationships within the Power BI, and we want the customers to follow the data modeling principles of it. For that reason only we have not automated, but that can also be automated as part of the implementations.
Great. Thanks, Vasu, for taking those questions. I know we are over a minute. Again, folks, thanks for joining this session. I hope you found it informative and useful. In case if you have any questions and if you are not fully answered your questions, please drop a note to us at marketing@winwire.com, and we will take those questions offline and we'll come back to you. Thanks a lot, Vasu. Have a good day, everyone.